Nell Bryden is here to talk about her stuff. All right, Nell, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
You recorded some. I mean, first of all, when you came in, you said Al Green. Boy,
oh, what a voice!
It's just, and it turned out Donny Osmond was entirely right. The whole production and the compression on that track was fantastic. But you recorded some words for us for Back for Good, Take That, which I still think is their finest tune.
It really is, yeah.
And you recorded some love for the Eurythmics, There Must Be an Angel.
You know, I did. I was asked which song I was going to pick, so I picked the Eurythmics song, and sadly, I got bumped by Annie Lennox.
That feels a little unfair, really.
Feels a little unfair, and yet so very right.
And what would you have said? In fact, what did you say but we didn't use?
I basically tripped over myself and said she was a goddess, so I'm okay with the fact that she said it. In fact, what I was saying was that it's quite hard to get a love song to not sound cliche, and I think that's why Annie and her vocals are so important to that. Of course, they had Stevie Wonder in there with the incredible harmonica, and it was a very sort of 80s fun pop song, but her vocals make it quirky and different and eccentric, and they really add this personality level to it that I think makes a love song graduate to a different level where it's got its own kind of, identity to it.
Do you try and avoid love songs then, unless you've got a particularly sparkling idea?
You know, I think it's probably wise as a songwriter to avoid love songs. In fact, Peter Gabriel said he never wrote a love song until he wrote In Your Eyes, because he wanted to wait that long. It's so easy to fall back on cliches for love songs. So you really want to get to the heart of the matter and find a different way to express something that basically everybody can understand.
Do you remember the first one you wrote?
Oh, yeah, and it was awful, and it shall never see the light of day.
Do you remember how it went?
Oh, dear. If you're trying to, coerce me into doing it now, no way.
Just just a couple of lines from it.
I think it was something about I want to live in sweet happiness or something like that. In fact, I had a dream that Tracy Chapman met me at a crossroads, and she said, "Here's a lyric to a song. You should write this now." And I woke up the next morning, I wrote it, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is a hit!" But of course, I was 17, so there was many years after that.
So your new record is Bloom. I was listening to the whole thing this morning. I didn't go through all the lyrics. How many love songs on here? Now that you're in a contented place in your life.
Yeah, and the interesting thing on this record was I did a Radio 2 show called Nell's Angels.
That's right.
Yeah,
very good.
And it was all about the female artists that I absolutely loved their voices. And you talked about Dusty Springfield, and there's some Aretha Franklin songs out there that, people whose voices were so incredibly passionate when they were singing these songs. So when I started working on this album, I was writing very sort of self-satisfied, everything's great, I'm happily married songs. And I realized making that show that those weren't going to be the singer's nuts and bolts. They weren't going to be the songs that were coming from that sort of fiery, passionate place, that soulful place. So I went back to the drawing board and I wrote different kinds of songs. So there's love songs on there. There's bittersweet songs. There's songs about breaking up. There's songs about, moving on in life. There's songs about traveling. There's songs about the love of being a mother, which is the Dare the World in One song that is our new single.
Which we're going to play in just a minute. Well, as you've mentioned it, why don't we play it? And this is the first play that you kind of redone it slightly from the way it is on the record. Just tell us about this track is Dared the World and Won.
Yeah.
Okay. What have you dared, and in which way have you won?
Well, I think love is a gamble for many people, and I think that it's lovely on Valentine's Day to think that everything just sort of works out perfectly, but we all know that love comes in many different forms, and it can be work. For me, though, this incredible sense of daring life that I didn't think I could be a musician and a mother at the same time. I didn't think I could do both of those and be a good mother. My own mother was off touring quite a bit when I was a child, and our family broke apart when I was quite young. And I thought as a musician, I had to be one or the other. But then I suddenly was pregnant, and before I knew it, I was having this perfect little child. And in fact, it's made music even more meaningful for me, and my whole life have this glow of understanding and happiness about it. That is what the dare is, basically.
So is it possible to write great songs from a position of contentment and happiness? Because, the tradition would be angst, arty, in pain. Then you get some good songs.
I think it is definitely possible to write them from contentment, but they are fewer and farther between.
Okay. So let's play the new single from Nell Bryden. This is from the record, but you've remixed it, and it's...
yes, this is hot off the press. This is the radio remix for
And it was only finished this afternoon?
It was only finished minutes ago.
All right. Nell Bryden dared the world and won.
Try to find the words to say your eyes
First play of Nell Bryden's new single, Dared the World and Won. Happy with that?
Yeah.
All right. Details on some shows from Nell next.
It's one massive show.
You know, there always were certain I know Steve was doing that as a joke, but there were certain shows that had a snacks trolley. And I always wondered why I never had one of those shows.
No,
I think they were the long. No, I think they were like the long-standing shows that have been around for a very long time. So Nell Bryden is here. The album is Bloom. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But what are these shows that you're doing now?
Well, I'm doing a series of shows. It's called the In Bloom Tour, and it's basically I just wanted to do a few shows this spring that showed Bloom as I really conceived it, which was in a very stripped back form. This album was the kind of a reset for me, and I wanted to go back to songwriting as the sort of main, impetus for me being a musician, and to really get to the sort of crux of those songs, you kind of have to strip them right back. And so I'm going out with just my keyboard player, and I get to talk about where the songs came from and the process of recording them and writing them, and it's just a sort of more of an evening kind of a thing rather than a
soiree.
Gig. Yeah.
And you've spoken before about getting alopecia and then deciding almost like as an act of liberation that you weren't going to pretend anymore.
Yes.
And this is the new you, and sometimes you might wear a hat, sometimes you might not wear a hat.
Yeah.
And it sounds as though, from a creative point of view, it was
very liberating.
A wonderful moment.
It was incredible. I think.
Why do you think that was?
I think it's because the songwriters and musicians whose work I admire the most are very honest. They're very sort of sincere, genuine people that have a very unique standpoint and a point of view, and that can only happen by being truly being within your own skin, and to really kind of inhabit that as something that you own and that you're proud of, no matter how imperfect you are, and we all are, obviously. So this was a moment for me where I could say, I'm not going to wear a wig. I'm not going to sort of try to hide behind anything. And I know lots of people who've lost their hair and they do wear wigs, and that's wonderful for them. For me, it didn't feel comfortable. And so having that moment of saying, this is who I am, and I'm actually in an incredible position as a songwriter that I can be a very different looking person, and then also a very different looking songwriter because of it, was very liberating. And it did inform my songwriting from then on, because I thought, the ultimate exposure has happened now. So in fact, there's great power in that kind of vulnerability if you can write about it.
But image is very important, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is, yeah.
You must have thought, before you got to that position of being liberated, you must have been
I had people in the industry
too.
saying, you should not let anybody know about this. This is not a good thing. And it wasn't like I was a great, beauty before this all happened or anything either. It wasn't like I was like making it. No, I was never a Britney Spears or someone that was going to be like the sort of pop princess. So in fact, it was probably better for me, because suddenly I was just who I was, and that was the end of the story. Now let's get on with the music.
And what sort of reaction have you had?
Well, I think it's been inspiring for other people who are going through various life changes. For me, of course, it was just cosmetic, but a lot of people have written me and said, that they were going through various things, and they felt like, having someone who'd also gone through something traumatic and come through the other side stronger was inspiring. And I think that's wonderful.
When you did your most recent Radio 2 series going around New York, which sounded terrific. It sounds like you had a great time.
It was fun.
And you started off by saying, we're starting here at Trump Tower.
Oh, I know.
That's what it said. So I'm just interested to know what the last sort of month has been like, and what your perspective is of what life is like back in the US.
Oh, well, my goodness. I recorded that episode when it was the summer in New York. So that was before he had been elected. So this was before there was protests outside of Trump Tower. Now, every single day in New York City, there's people out there with placards and marching and protesting. And it just feels like the whole country is divided. I don't know how political I should really be as a musician, but I know personally I feel quite afraid of the direction of the world, and I don't feel like I trust the people in power anymore, notably the people in the White House. So for me, it's been very difficult to kind of go through that, ordeal. As he's a New Yorker, and he's right, down the street from where my dad lives, and he's out there, making all these decisions and stuff.
So you see, Do you think it might make you a more political songwriter?
It certainly has. I mean, I think I've always taken the policy of staying diplomatic and not sort of getting onto either side too much. You know, I went and I played for the troops over in Iraq when I was in 2008, and I deliberately put politics aside. I said, this is not an endorsement of the war. I'm simply going over to support the troops. But now I feel like this is the first president. I still can't even say he's our president, but this is the first president that I feel like I got to get up and I've got to say, you know what, I don't like this.
Maybe some of this will work its way into your novel because not just content with being a songwriter, you're working your way into... Where are you in your story?
Early days. I've got an idea, and I'm working away, and I'm actually sort of taking a course which has been very inspiring to me because I needed the structure. I needed to have some sense of how am I going to get, you know, this. It's a massive undertaking to write a novel. So you know, even though I was an English literature major and everything in university, I've gone back and I've decided that this is my next step that I want to do now.
Wow. Okay. Well, if you can't get it into a 3.5-minute song. Maybe you can get it into a 100,000-word novel or something.
Oh my God,
like
you're scaring me now.
Nell, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed. So the album is called Bloom, and the new single is on the way. And you have, I mean, that's hardly a tour, though, to be honest. It's
no,
like
it's
5
just a few
shows.
dates. Yeah, exactly. But, well, okay, they're all up on my website, but the 10th of March in Kent, the 27th of April in Maidstone, 28th April in Southampton, 2nd of May in London, 13th of May in Cardiff, and then there's going to be a couple of northern dates added in there as well. So, but again, the point is that it's stripped back, and these are the songs in their very sort of condensed form, and I'm talking about them.
Nell, it's very good to see you again. Thank you very much, Lee, for coming in. We stop because it's time for love song number 4
Woohoo!
in our chart. You almost certainly recorded something for this as well, but I'm afraid it didn't get in. Okay, so we're here till 7, counting down these most played love songs on Radio 2's exclusive chart. We've had Al Green's Let's Stay Together at number 5. At number 4, it's an artist who's already appeared on the most played love song at 37, and that is Van Morrison. Fan? Are you a fan? That's a question.
Am I a fan?
Yes.
I thought you said Van.
No, fan.
I am a fan of Van.
Fan of Van.
Yes.
For many years, he never played this live because he said it was a bit throwaway, and he had 300 tunes that were better. Okay, number 4 on our...